Hi, I'm PizzaScientist. Have you ever put a Blender image sequence into your video editor only to realize that the colors don't look the way they did in your viewport? Well, I'm going to show you how to fix that. It doesn't matter what the color space you're exporting is, this will work with any settings. Today I'm using Davinci Resolve 20.3.1 so you can follow along. First we need to tell Davinci that it is an image sequence that we're importing, so it doesn't just dump a bunch of images into our bin. When you first open Davinci, you might be on the cut page, so we need to go to the media page. And then in the media page, in the media storage area, we're going to go to the three dots, frame display mode, and switch it to sequence. Next, we're going to go to the edit tab. Now we're in the edit tab, I'm going to import my image sequence. From Blender, I export an EXR image sequence to get the best quality I can out of the render. I'm going to select my first frame and my last frame, and we're going to drag that into the media pool. Now we have it in the master bin. Now we need to make sure our image sequence settings matches what we actually want it to be, as well as our project settings. So we're going to right click it, flip attributes, and yep, the frame rate's not what I wanted. So I exported this at 24, so we're going to change it to 24. Now we set the frame rate to be correct in the image sequence. Now we need to change it for the project settings. So you can go to File, Project Settings, and then we're going to change the frame rate to 24 because that's what I exported it as. And now I also want the resolution to match. The resolution of my image sequence is Quad HD, so I went ahead and put in the custom pixel resolution, and also my video is also vertical. So I'm going to click use vertical resolution, and that'll flip that around for me. Save that, change. Next we're going to make a timeline. So right click, create new timeline using selected clips. We change our project settings to match what we want it to be, so we can leave that. I like to put TL for timeline at the beginning of my timeline names. And this render is from Plunging G-Toilet. Now our image sequence is in here. I'm just going to switch to dual screen to remove some of the clutter. Okay, now we have our image sequence in here. It's working. The resolution, frame rate's correct, but the colors are not the way I want them to look. I'll put a comparison next to it. So how do we get this to look like the colors we had on our viewport when we saw it in Blender? Next we need to go to the Fusion tab, and then we're going to use a couple of nodes to make the colors look the way we expect them to be. First we need to add a color transform. So right click, add tool, color, color VFX, ASIS transform. And then we're going to plug in our input of the media into our output through our transform here. We're going to leave the ASIS version the same. Under input transform, we're going to scroll down to the bottom where it says sRGB linear. That'll be our input, and then our output, we're going to scroll down to sRGB texture. Now already this looks a lot more like what we expected it to look like. Now this may seem like we fixed it, but actually in really bright areas it might not look right. In this part here, this area should be turning white, but it looks like the standard color space even though I exported it in AGX where everything's supposed to turn white when it's really bright. But clearly that's not working quite right here. So we need to make it so when the areas turn really bright, they turn white. So we're going to right click, add tool, color VFX, and we're going to add a gamut mapping node. Plug it in after the ASIS transform, plug it into the output so it goes through both of these nodes now. Change the gamma to sRGB, and then gamut mapping method, change this to saturation compression, and now things will turn white when they are really bright. Now you may not want to do this if you want the colors to become very saturated like the standard color space versus the AGX color space, but if you're exporting in like AGX color space for example, and you want to keep that things turn white when it's really bright part of it, then you're going to want to add this node and switch it to saturation compression. Now for most renders this will work, this is the solution, but I found sometimes the contrast actually doesn't look quite the way it did in my viewport. So for the contrast to look right, I found you can change the max input luminance to 90, which is like the maximum brightness of the image sequence, and that just makes everything a little deeper looking. Then we can add a brightness and contrast node under add color, brightness contrast, plug it in. This is our third node in the chain of nodes it's going through. And then you want to check the black and white. And if you export a transparent image sequence, you're going to want to check pre-divide post-multiply, because then it'll only apply these color changes to that layer. Because if that's not checked, the layer under the transparency will also be affected by these changes. And then go to lift and change it to negative 0.05. Now I found for me this gets the contrast to look the way I expected it to. But overall across the gamut mapping node and the brightness contrast node, you should be able to dial in the exact kind of color you're looking for. This also gives you a lot of flexibility if you're exporting in EXR specifically to change the way the lighting looks in post. I would also like to mention, because this is also related to color, sometimes I notice the bright areas of a video will actually have the colors turn inverted. sometimes in my output video. So a way you can fix that if you get that weird problem is you can go to the deliver tab, and I export an MP4 normally. Make sure you set it to H.265, and I found that solves the inverting color problem in really bright areas. For whatever reason, this compression seems to handle the bright areas better. And I've also found it seems to retain more tiny little details and look less blurry overall. So that's just in general what I recommend exporting Blender animations in. After that, now we can see that the colors look the way I expected, and even this guy's glowing gear inside, you see how it turns white when it's bright, the contrast looks great, and the colors aren't like deep fried like they looked originally. So that will conclude this tutorial. Thank you for watching. I really hope this was helpful for you. Let me know in the comments if there's anything I can also help you with regarding Blender or DaVinci. Check out my animations, like the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.